most of you I know. I'm the board chair for Tri-Valley Nonprofit Alliance. I want to thank you for being here on this beautiful day and the summer day. Okay, so I'm going to introduce our speaker for the day. We're very excited to have him today. Rick Altman has worked with hundreds of companies and is listened to by tens of thousands of professionals and read by millions of people, all of whom seek better results with their presentations, content, and delivery. He covers the whole presentation of the industry from message crafting through presentation design, slide creation, software technique, and delivery. He is the host of Presentation Summit, now in its 23rd season as the most prominent learning event in the world for the presentation community. We're not in front of audiences or in the Zoom studio that used to be his daughter's room. He can be found on the sports field, be it tennis, pickleball, baseball diamond, or the golf course. So please help me welcome Rick.
Yay.
Thank you, Marty. Thanks, everyone. Welcome to my foyer. I have vivid memories of this space. And I'm sure it would be really nice in the auditorium. I'm sure that's a nice space also. But there's just, the vibe here is just so cool. If 500 of you arrived, okay, fine.
Okay.
Go into the auditorium. But I love this space here. And at least one other person here, Valerie had to come back because she's my friend. At least one of you was here the first time that I spoke. And part of the vivid memory is that was February of 2020. The last time I spoke in person in a year and a half. So yes, I have memories of this space, there could be a negative association with that, but for me there kind of isn't, because one of the COVID silver linings was that we all had to deal with communication in a completely different way. We all had to learn Zoom. And virtual presenting is now almost half of my business. And I didn't know anything about it at all, just like the rest of you. And we will speak about virtual presenting today. We'll devote a fair amount of time to that because that's now part of what we all have to do. But we're going to start with bedrock principles of communication and presentation. And we're going to start with an assumption that I'm going to make about a quality that I think that you all believe you don't possess. And I'm going to take a poll to find that out. So everybody take out your phones, okay? Here's the question. What kind of graphic design experience do you have? And I'm not going to define graphic design. I'm going to let you define it however you want. Shoot that code right there, please. And you're going to then get 4 choices. 4 choices to answer this question. Either you actually have a formal background in the arts, or you're an amateur, but you have good instincts. You get lucky once in a while.
The glare.
Is the glare tough? Yeah. And if you have to move around, yeah.
You can stand up too.
And we could do this the old-fashioned way also. If it doesn't work, that's fine. I thought that the screen is pretty. There we go. Okay, so some of you have gotten through. So you're a hack, but you get lucky sometimes, or maybe you could not design your way out of a dump truck. Those are your 4 choices, and I have an expectation about this, and it's being met as we speak, because there's usually a big old bell curve right in the center. And usually the dump truckers outpace the pros. These two could go either way, but as is always the case, very few of you,
I got it.
13% at the moment, that's what, probably at least 3 of you, that's more than I would have guessed actually, come to PowerPoint, come to presentation from some sort of background in graphic design. Most of you don't. I'd be in one of these 2 categories myself, all right? And yet, we are asked to design presentations often on a daily basis. So that right there provides us quite a dilemma. And thank you all for participating and showing us some of what that dilemma is. Now, there's more to the story also. And it starts with a number. As Marty mentioned, I host a conference, the Presentation Summit, and once a year we get used to be 200, now if you count virtual, it's closer to 300 or 350, from all over the country, all over the world to spend 4 days with us. So these are some of the most vested people in the entire industry. And we asked a very simple question of them. How much time did you spend learning PowerPoint? Just about everybody said less than an hour. A few people said 15 minutes. They spent 15 minutes learning the software that they're then going to go spend untold number of years using. And unlike Word and Excel, PowerPoint, you practice that in public. Right? And so that's an issue. The very definition of proficiency even changes as a result of this. You know, if you can do it fast, people think you're really good. If you can teach it to others, OMG, you're a god. But what is it that people do fast? What is it they teach their colleagues? Usually what they learned in that first hour of training. They went to a webinar. They bought a book or something and said, okay, I'm good. And that's really the problem with PowerPoint, is that it's too easy. It's not that it's so difficult. Both of my daughters started creating slides when they were 10 years old. It's probably the easiest program in the Office suite to start using. And therein lies the problem with it. Let me give you two more numbers. These are percentages, and this is a result of another survey taken of 60 business people right after they gave a 1-hour talk. And they too were asked a very simple question. Just about all of them said, why yes, I believe I am a very good communicator. Ready for the other shoe to drop, huh? Survey didn't end there. Then they asked the audience the same question. Was he or she, most of them were men, was he a good communicator? Completely different answer. Look at that gap. So not only do we have all these people out there committing death by PowerPoint, most of them have no idea that they're even doing it. So, you know, you ask, how did we get into this place where the tool that we use is the object of such scorn and ridicule? That expression I just used, death by PowerPoint, that's in everybody's vocabulary today, right? And these are some of the reasons why we have gotten into this place. Now, I'm dating myself with this slide as I look around the room. There's a few of you that have never even seen a phone booth, let alone remember the old fraternity prank of how many people can be put inside of one. Why does this remind me of the way people create their slides? Why do we do this? Now, that's not a rhetorical question. There are real reasons for this. You're on your own with that first one. I can't help you there. All the rest of these are very real phenomena, and they strike right at the core of the issues that we face as presentation content creators, as presenters, again, in person or virtual. In fact, I was going to say there's no difference, but really there is a difference, because when you combine death by PowerPoint and Zoom fatigue, you really have a toxic brew. So perhaps it's even more challenging virtual today. All right, now if you decided that you'd had enough of me and you were going to leave right now, the doors are right there and they're unlocked. I want to make sure that before you do, you get the most important piece of advice that I can give you. So that's where we're going to start. My most important piece of advice for anybody creating presentation content today, or actually delivering presentations. Are you ready? Right here. Nobody walks into the room looking forward to seeing your slides. I'm sorry, but that hasn't happened in the history of PowerPoint. The reason that people will come to hear you speak, either in person or virtual, is because you have information they are hoping is going to be useful to them. They are hoping that you will share with them your expertise, your perspective, your vision. If they're lucky, your passion. But the moment that you make your slides more important than you do everybody in the room a disservice, including yourself. Maybe especially yourself. You are the reason that people come to a presentation, not your slides. All right, nobody left, so I can share with you my second most important piece of advice in what might seem like the world's fastest contradiction. Yes, they come to hear you. You have to make it about them. You have to find out what matters to your audience and speak to those issues right out of the gate. Leave it until later to tell them how great your organization is and how many widgets you create west of the Mississippi and your Forbes rating, all that. You know, I'm sorry, but unless your mother's in the audience, nobody really cares about that. You have to make them care. The way you make them care is showing that you care about them. That's how you want to start your presentations, with what you know matters to your audience. All right, this question has many possible answers, and I want to share with you what my preferred answer is about what makes a good presentation. A good presentation is made up of three things. Three tenets to a good presentation. What you say, what you show, and what you give. What you say to your audience when you are standing there in front of them or seated virtually in front of them. That's the first one. What you show them, typically in the form of PowerPoint slides. And then what you give to them, usually in the form of a printed handout or a PDF formatted handout. What you say, what you show, what you give to your audience. Ideally, each of those things should be as good as you could possibly make them. You should think separately about each of them. How can I make these three things be as strong as possible so I can service my audience? All too often, however, that's not what happens. All too often what does happen is that somebody throws up all over their slides. They then read their slides, often word for word. And then they print their slides and say, here's my handout. In other words, instead of these three things all being unique and distinct and strong, they all just become the same thing. And that strikes me right there as a pretty good definition of death by PowerPoint. So I want to admonish you to think separately about these three critical tenets of the presentation experience. Pretty much everything that I'm going to say for the next, 75 minutes left or so, all start with this as really the founding principle. What you say to your audience, what you show your audience, what you give to your audience. Keep them separate. That's hard. I understand that. I know the pain of 11th hour emergencies, crazed bosses, ridiculous deadlines, and I'm asking you to not just print your slides as a handout, but actually create something separate. I understand the specter of what I'm telling you. But oh man, when you do that and your audience says, wow, this person really took the time to think about how I want to receive this information, you're going to distinguish yourself from 99% of the people giving presentations today. We'll talk more about this, and like I said, this is the underlying principle for just about everything we're going to talk about here today. And so much of it boils down to right here. Why do we do this? Why do we create phone booths? Why are we compelled to just put so much text on our slides? And I wanted to give a shout out, but I think she's not here. Elizabeth sent me a deck that she's been working on, and it started like this. And while all this stuff bounces onto the slide, let me just start by saying that this is not that. I've seen worse slides than this. The animation was very gratuitous when you actually look at the text. So yes, this would be a challenge. for Elizabeth or the people that are giving this talk. This is all about the Livermore Canine Foundation. Wonderful organization. And this was created in a kiosk, so that's why the text was bouncing in a little bit. You know, I can understand that a little bit. There are several scenarios in which this is presented. On a Zoom call, I think that I would get a migraine maybe with the bouncing text. And this is too much. This text, this would send me on defense, as I like to call it. When I find myself explaining the slide rather than sharing my ideas with the audience. Question, yes?
What do you mean by bouncing text?
This text that came onto the slide like this. Well, flying, maybe not bouncing, but flying. I mean, I'm so literally flying onto the, yeah. And you know, so why? You know, this gets back to that very first slide, autopiloting. We often just go on autopilot when we create slides. And somebody said somewhere that you can create more energy in the room if you animate your text. Sorry, but that will usually just make your audience a little more nauseous. And we can talk all about this. I do a whole hour just on animation. But at the core of this is why this slide was created as it was. And if Elizabeth were here, I'd ask her to pretend that she's speaking to this bullet point right here, the one that starts our primary objective. Because I bet it would be really difficult for any of us to pretend to be the presenter and speak to this without just reciting it. And this is because of universal axiom, my number 2 across all of PowerPoint, which goes something like this. If you display sentences on screen, it is practically impossible to avoid reading every bit of it word for word. This leads directly into universal axiom number 3. They might think you're a complete idiot for the back of the room that might not be able to read that. It takes an extremely disciplined presenter to not just read when confronted with fully formed thoughts like these. That's why the fire danger is so high in creating slides like this. Here's what happens to your audience when you foist upon them slides like this. Here's their thought process. I can read it faster than he can say it. I'm already done. Why didn't he just email this to me? I think I'll just text my friends. That's pretty much what happens when you give slides like this, when you use slides like this in a presentation. Nobody appreciates it. So I want to challenge you. I call it my 3-word challenge. Can you reduce every one of your bullet points to 3 words or fewer? 3 words or fewer for each of your bullet points. That might be really difficult to do. In fact, it might be impossible. But you have to try nonetheless, as I'm going to right now with Elizabeth's slide. So as I look at this, I mean, the first place I'm going to go is the title. Mission statement? Can't we do better than that? I think we can. I think I would eliminate that entirely. And, you know, if they were established in 1917, that would really be noteworthy. I'm sorry, 2017, does that merit a bullet point? Now, I'm not suggesting necessarily that the words I'm targeting for elimination are unimportant. They might be very important. They might be so important that you need to say them because remember, you are the presentation. I'm just suggesting that they don't belong on the slide. Oh, good thing that I remembered to come to this. That's a reminder to speak at the bankhead. And, you know, this is the bane of existence of PowerPoint technical support people. because Microsoft simply can't understand how to not show notifications during a presentation. They've only had about 25 years to get it right. All right, next. Right there, training, safety, and health throughout the life of the dog. And here, so most of these are okay. I think there's some canines that we don't really need. And there. And I want to add a couple words. Okay, so I failed most of the time. Only a couple times did I actually get within 3 words. But I assure you that the reward is in the attempt, because look what I've done. Look what I've done to that slide. And even if I don't go any further, now this is a slide that can be digested a little bit. But now also we can go further. You know, those of you that called yourselves hacks, those of you that put yourself in the dump truck, who knows really what kind of instincts you might have toward good slide design, because most slides afford you no opportunity whatsoever. The 11% that said they had a formal background in the arts, there probably wasn't a whole lot they could have done to the original slide. It was just too overladen with text. So who knows really what kind of instincts you might have towards slide design. But now you can start to maybe ask yourself a little bit. And we can start by just looking at these points here. And so also I'm going to eliminate. I don't understand why there's what this little weird thing is here. I mean, it looks like there's a background and then another background. That line is unnecessary. Let's just clean all that up for starters. And then, okay, so how about just the simplest of titles, all right? And this really feels like a description for that. That one, sorry, the second one. From career retirement all the way through to until the dog goes to doggy heaven. The Livermore Canine Foundation is going to be supporting these wonderful animals. And then this one down here maybe is redundant. And so, and replacement canines, I think that's implicit also. So really now we've gotten down to four points that are the crucial ones to be up while Elizabeth or whoever is speaking to the group, okay? And again, this will be a better experience for everybody in the room, even if we go no further at all. Now, we could though, I mean, if nothing else, I mean, could we maybe just center everything? Yeah, that works. That works. But we could probably do better. Again, maybe for the first time now, you can say, okay, what could I give this slide to breathe a little more life into it? What is missing from this slide?
Who does it serve?
Dogs. Dogs. Yes, a dog. And that is the simple question that any of us can ask, irrespective of what kind of background we have in graphic design. Is there an image? Is there a photo that is evocative of the experience? If I can find it, I want to make it as large as possible. And you know what? It was really easy to find a photo of a service animal. And I asked for, I forget which place I went to, but I simply asked for fair use of a picture of a canine service animal, and there we go. Now, it came up backwards, so let's just turn that around. And I think we can create a really nice slide from this. I need space somewhere for our text, and so I'm going to move the dog over just a little bit, and now just maybe fill out that space a little bit. So that was a trick I did, whereby I don't want to just stretch the whole dog, but I define this area right here as, if I distort that, nobody's going to notice.
What program are you doing? Are you changing the slide?
That's all PowerPoint.
This is all PowerPoint?
Yes, and I can show you that. I'll have hand to mouse a little bit later, and if you
Okay.
want, I can show you this trick. It's fun, and it's not that difficult.
Okay.
And so now let me maybe just make them a little bigger, and I've got space now on this. I don't need that much because I've honed and distilled the text. I don't need that much space. And we can probably do better as a title than simply the Livermore Canine Foundation, maybe something like that can go across the entire slide. And there it is, our title and subtitle. And there was only 4 points that needed to be made. And they fit just fine there. Now, we've got some contrast issues in through here. A very simple trick inside the software, which I can also show you, will allow me to blend all of this together. That's a semi-transparent shape just sitting behind the text, which now blends them together. When you blend simple text messages with relevant images, you create presentation experiences for your audiences that will, I'm going to say it again, distinguish you from 99% of the people giving presentations today. Because most people go on autopilot. Maybe they found one of those layouts in PowerPoint where it's text here and photo here, so they put their text here and they put the photo here. But when you can think just a little bit more outside that narrow box and think about making large photos, at least anchored to 3 sides. That's what I say. I want my photos to be anchored at least to 3 sides. If I can do 4, so much the better. And if I can find space or carve out space, white space, negative space, empty space, whatever it's called, that open space is every bit as important to the photo as the subject itself. And again, and then you are distinguishing yourself that way. Now, so this was one exercise. Then I thought, okay, well, let me try it a different way. Oh, first, I got to put the before and after. Without the before and after, I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer, which you like to have as the backdrop while you're hearing 10 minutes or so on the virtues of this foundation. Okay, and it starts with the 3-word challenge. That's perhaps one of the most important tactical advices tactical pieces of advice that I can give you, is to kind of hone and distill. And when you start to do that, you will find you'll become so much more in tune with your message and with the words. I can't tell you how many clients have found typos going through the 3-word challenge that they didn't even see in the slide when there was so much verbiage before. And you'll start to think, okay, well, is this really a bullet? Maybe this should be the title. Maybe this doesn't belong here. You will scrutinize your text on a whole different level thanks to the 3-word challenge. Questions, comments? Yes, I'll come to you. Yeah.
The one thing I still feel like is missing is who is it serving? Because not everyone knows that canine means a service animal.
Who is it serving?
Yeah, so who, you know what I mean? Is this a dog that I go and check out? Is it my dog you're training? Whose dog is it?
So,
and who are you giving these dogs to somebody? Am I buying it?
I don't want to give you the ultimate cop-out here, but I'm not the one giving this presentation.
Yeah.
I'm not a member of the association,
Right.
And they are the ones that will carry the day. They're the ones that are going to come up here and say, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so pleased to be speaking to you about Livermore's Canine Foundation, which supports these wonderful animals all the way through training and retirement. They're the ones that are going to give the meat to the bones that I'm not qualified to do. And so I just want, what I want to impress upon you is that the simplest of backgrounds here is going to be better for that person who's going to be the star of the show. Thank you for making that distinction. I appreciate it. Yes?
So the 3-word challenge is for every slide?
Is it for every slide? Why not? I would love for you to stop at every single slide and say, can this message be honed and distilled? Now, if you've got a couple slides that already are that way, if you have a slide that simply says yes, I mean, that's somebody who's thought this through and has already done that, has those instincts already. But most of us probably haven't had that practice, don't have those instincts. It isn't second nature. So yes, scrutinize every single slide. Yes.
Thank you.
You bet. Okay, next, let's do this again. Let's ask an AI agent. Here was the prompt. Please create a photorealistic depiction of a canine dog. Include enough background to place text over it. And here's what I came up with. That's not bad. There's already a bunch of space over there. Not bad. But if I'm able to sort of, you know, if the sky's the limit here, let's keep going. Add an officer kneeling next to his or her loyal companion. Okay? That's what it came up with. Welcome to the world of AI. All right, so of course my next prompt is yes. All right, and that got me to here. Okay, not bad, but I don't have any space to work with. So my next prompt was give me more meadow on the right side or the left side, either way. Okay, not bad, but now too much. The dog is cropped a little too much, I think. I could work with this, but I'd rather, that's a bit too much meadow. Bring the dog back into full frame. And that got me to here. I then spent about an hour trying to move him down just a little bit, because I had that headline running all the way across. I'm fine running the headline over the dog's ears. I'm not fine running the headline over the officer's eyes. I wanted to just move him down the slightest amount. Oh my goodness, you would think I was talking to a 5-year-old. It dropped it a foot. It removed it altogether. And I'm thinking, okay, should I actually say it in pixels? How do I do this? I finally gave up and decided that this was going to be good enough. I'm going to run it across his forehead. And so this, I think this works. And let's just do everything again. I had to move the title up a little bit higher. And there we go. So AI did its job for me. It's all about the prompts, and it's all about being patient. Questions in a moment. And so, you decide. And actually, what do you all think? Which one do you think is the better one to go with? Any thoughts?
The top one.
The top one.
This one?
AI, because you say looking out for man's best friend, and they're together, and so for me, that one is
Okay.
more
All right. Good. Anyone else?
I think they're both good.
Isn't it great that we don't have to make the decision? That I created both of these completely legally. Didn't have to steal anything from anyone. And there you go. And this is all available. I have a URL that is not on the screen at the moment. If you want to, anything that you're seeing here today, I should have said this at the beginning. Take as many notes as you want. Take pictures, record, do all that stuff. There is a recording of all this happening. But everything you're going to see is available to you to download, reverse engineer, and play with. And I will point out the URL the next time it's on screen. Question? Yes?
Can I drop that low a little bit so you don't need to spend an hour to do that? The photo. Is that you're spending an hour to try to drop
I
that?
spent about 45 minutes trying to ask my AI
I see.
agent to move the officer down the slightest amount.
Okay, sorry, I understand.
And so this is the 90-10 thing. I got 90% of the way there with 10% of the effort. And then I spent untold number of minutes trying to get that last 10%. I failed.
Got it.
If you tell it to expand the meadow on the right side, can you tell it to expand the empty space above the two subjects?
Good question. I know I tried lots of different things. I think that the answer is yes. You could absolutely try that. I don't remember if I succeeded or not. Because at some point I'm thinking, well, this is ridiculous. Because I mean, it does work. It's fine. I mean, I don't care if I'm over the guy's head, but this is just so typical of my relationship with my AI agent. Yes, and I'll come back to you, Valerie. Yeah.
What are the questions that you should be thinking that your audience will ask when you're evaluating your own slide? So you step away from the slide, you're trying to figure out it's not perfect, but is it good enough?
Mm-hmm.
What are the questions that I should be asking? Trying to get into my audience's head what I want them to take away to evaluate if my slide is successful.
Yeah, good question. What should I be anticipating that my audience would be asking? I guess the first thing I'll say is that what I want my audience to be wondering about is not what I'm showing them, but what I'm telling them. Because again, that's going to be the most important thing of all. So what of my narrative might inspire questions and thought. And I don't know if I can come up with anything. I mean, I suppose one good thing to always do is to ask rhetorical questions. And if you start to see heads nodding, if you start to see people really relating to you, you know you're on the right track. But in terms of anticipating questions, I think that's going to be so content-based that I'm just not sure I can generalize about that. This may be the only audience where we're really going to talk so much about, we're going to spend all our time looking at the visuals. Because really, the visuals should be secondary to your spoken message to the audience. Valerie.
I'm fascinated by the idea of using AI to create images. I haven't used AI for that. And so, but when AI creates it, they create JPEG that you then drop into PowerPoint, or have.
Very good. Exactly right.
Okay.
I did not ask for Microsoft Copilot, which is the AI engine built into Office. I did not ask for Copilot to create the slide. I simply asked for ChatGPT to create an image, after which, yes, I exported it as a PNG file, PNG JPEG, brought it into PowerPoint, and then built the slide around it.
And did you tell it what font you wanted?
Nope, that's all me in PowerPoint.
Oh, that was you in PowerPoint.
That's me in
Oh,
PowerPoint.
it created the background image and then you put
That's it.
Okay.
All I was looking for was that image in the back.
Got it.
Yeah, thank you
That's so cool.
for the clarification there. All right, we'll take more questions in a little bit. Let's keep going here. So these are the things that make up presentation design. And I do a whole hour just on that. And the first thing I say is, well, a lot of people don't even know what the word means, because we hear the word design and we think of, a pretty slide. And yes, we would like to have attractive slides. But if that's all we have, we don't really have much. We need to be talking about the principles of presentation design, where we bring in questions about what our audience, the information our audience wants to have, how they want to have that information, honing and distilling the text, all of that. Those are the things we talk about when we mean presentation design. And again, those of you that most of us who don't have a background in the arts, we can still do this. We can ask basic questions to find good imagery or not. When you ask that question, is there a photo that I can use? The answer might be no. That's perfectly fine. Then you just have a clean slide with a clean background. That's perfectly fine. You don't want every single slide to be ornately designed and to have beautiful photos. It's actually good to have some contrast, to have some plain slides. Then you will actually increase the impact when you have slides that really matter. If you force it too much, then you end up with, the two faceless hands shaking each other, or the guy crossing the finish line in a suit holding a briefcase. All the stupid shit you see at these stock image houses, and you force their use. Don't. You don't need to do that. Just ask the question, is there a photo that really is relevant to the experience? And either way, how can I make the text as clean as possible so my words, my spoken words, will really shine? These are the takeaways about presentation design. Any questions or comments before we switch gears a little bit?
I don't know if you're going to talk about this, but the colors, using different colors on the words,
Mm-hmm.
and of the titles and all that. Do you recommend that, or is that too busy?
Do I recommend choosing colors wisely? Yes.
Okay.
Do I recommend a variety of colors? That depends. It looks really nice on that window back there, but I would not recommend it for the text on my slide. The most important thing is readability. The most important thing is contrast. And if you have, like, let's say, 4 main topics to a presentation, and each topic you want to have on the slide. If you want to tint that one back a little bit because that's sort of almost like the background, that's fine. But the text that you want your audience to read has to have high contrast. That's the most important thing. I usually go with white. I usually have dark backgrounds and white text. I'm pretty basic that way. Yes?
I don't know if I'm getting ahead, but with regards to fonts, do you have any kind of any guidelines?
Do I have guidelines for typefaces?
Yes.
Yes. Sans serif.
Okay.
Type that doesn't have the little squiggles and curly cues and the things, the serifs. Those are really good for printed text. It helps guide the eye from letter to letter. But on lower resolution devices like screens and websites and presentations, they could just muddy things up and they could actually inhibit readability. So sans serif typefaces, ones that don't have the squiggles. So these are sort of in between. That's large. If I'm going to go with something that's a little bit decorative, like this text here, I want to make it big.
I know you have 3 different fonts on that slide. Is that okay, or do you need to?
So I have 2 different type families. I forget the name of this one. That's a typeface. That's a type family. This is Source Sans Pro. That's bold. That's Roman. Same type family. And this is also the same. So I generally will not do more than 2. I often only do 1. For my title slides and my takeaway slides, I have this decorative face that you only saw twice. You saw at the very beginning and you only saw here. Otherwise, you saw 1 typeface for just about everything. Oh, and so I'm sorry that you're not able to see this very well. altman.pro/TVNPA. That URL has all the not all, I mean, there's like 3 or 4 of the downloaded files for all the examples that you've seen here, that you have seen so far and that you will continue to see.
We'll share that with everybody
Great.
at the end, just
Thank
so that
you.
way,
Okay.
in case you know.
Okay, other questions or comments? Yes?
Thoughts on Georgia?
Sorry?
Thoughts on Georgia?
Something Georgia.
Thoughts on Georgia? as a
Thoughts on
first
Georgia? Yes, Georgia. I do remember Georgia.
Is that too elaborate?
Yeah, I don't think I'd use Georgia. I'd use it for titles.
Okay.
Because if I'm thinking correctly, Georgia has pretty elaborate serifs.
Think like New York Times.
At 14, 16 point, I don't know. I think I would be a little gun shy using that for my main text. I might use it for titles.
Fantastic, thank you.
You bet.
Fonts and backgrounds for aging eyes. I give a lot of presentations to senior.
Yeah. All right, nothing under 24 point? 32 and 36 or better? Definitely sans serif. I think as long as you're sans serif and you're not small, you're fine. The whole idea of a sans serif typeface is that every stroke width is going to be the same. See how do I have a, let's see, can I use my, hold on a second. I think I can use my, okay, good. Can you see my cursor here? This width right here is the same as this width right here, which is the same as this height right here. All the stroke widths are the same. Serif typefaces are going to be more distinctive. They're going to have more personality. They're going to have stroke weights that might be really thin, like the A. You know, the A is going to be thick where you're creating it here, but thin along its left spine. That's what makes them distinctive. That's what makes them a pleasure to read when printed, but challenging to read on screen. All sans serif typefaces have the same stroke width, so I don't really think it matters to aging eyes which sans serif face you choose.
And then what about contrast then? The black background with white?
The more contrast, the better. I mean, white background with black text is good also.
Yeah,
Sometimes in rooms that could become jarring. It could be really bright suddenly. So I generally go the other way. I go with white text or light colored text on dark backgrounds. Yes?
For Zoom presentation, the presenter actually got a very small window, and the slide got a big window.
Yeah.
So do you do anything differently when you design a slide for Zoom presentation?
Yeah, very good. I do. First of all, what I try to do is I try to avoid the Zoom thing where you become a postage stamp. I've taken great pains to eliminate postage stamp syndrome, as I call it. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit coming up. It's a more extended conversation, and it may involve actually some hardware purchases or learning some new software. But one way or the other, yes, I don't like being a little postage stamp stuck in the corner. I want more control over my own video likeness, and that's one of the challenges of Zoom. Stay tuned. All right, in fact, let's start along there. So the road to all of this starts with your own presence as a presenter, your objective, and the challenges that we all face, starting right there. You know, your friends will be well-intended as you have a big presentation, as Kristen, right? Kristen has her big presentation June 30th, I think she said. And her friend might say, oh, it's okay, don't be nervous. Well, I'm sorry, but that's just bullshit advice, okay? As well-intended as it is, you can't make yourself not be nervous. You either are or you aren't. And given those two choices, I'd rather you be nervous. I'm going to put a pin on that just for a moment, just to back up and talk about how the objectives that we're after, what we're looking to do, is to get to a place where we can share our ideas as freely as possible. We want to eliminate as many barriers as we can. Lord knows there are plenty of them. PowerPoint itself can become a barrier. When you create slides that have too much text on them, they become a barrier. When I walked in, this lectern was right here. And I don't need a hollow piece of wood, however attractive it is, in front of me and my audience. And the first thing I did is I moved it out of the way. I want to eliminate as many barriers as possible to get to a place where I can be as authentic as I can be. That is really the quality that you are after, is authenticity. Plenty of things might get in the way of that. So let's talk about that. In fact, let's start here with the book of lists. Worst fears that people have. What do you think belongs on this list?
Public speaking.
Zipper is down. That is not on the list. Very good, though. I don't need show of hands, just yell it out. What else?
Spiders.
Fires. Spiders. Yes. Spiders is way up here. What else?
Public speaking.
I'm sorry I didn't hear you. What else?
Public speaking.
Sorry I didn't hear you. What else?
Public speaking.
Heights.
Agoraphobia.
Sorry?
Agoraphobia.
What is that?
The fear of open spaces.
Ooh.
Fear of going out.
No.
Elevators.
Elevators. You know, let's go with heights.
Ladders.
Yes.
Ladders.
What else?
Claustrophobia.
Not this year. Nope.
Fear of clowns.
Clowns should be on the list. And you know what shouldn't be on the list? That really makes me sad. That makes me sad. Yeah. Drowning is definitely on the list. It's up here at 5. Fire is not on the list. Earthquakes, no. So we've got loneliness, fear of flying, fear of dying,
Mirrors.
sickness, financial issues, and as Jerry Seinfeld said, people would rather be in the casket than delivering the eulogy. OMG, my goodness. No wonder this stuff is so hard. You know, we didn't go to, you can't take storytelling classes in school. We've now established most of us are amateur designers. We all suck at PowerPoint and we're scared beyond death to speak in public. Oh my goodness. So no wonder this stuff is hard. So let's talk about this. And I'll just move everything back on.
Rick, how recent is this list?
Sorry?
How recent is this list?
That was 2022, I think.
Okay.
They do this every 2 or 4 years or so. And public speaking always ranks above death. The number might change, it's always that way. So, how many of you get nervous before you speak?
I know
A
why.
few of you raise your hands, the rest of you are lying. I get nervous every time. And every time I speak, I get nervous, and I'm reminded of what Reggie Jackson said. Now, I'm dating myself. I'm old enough to remember when he played ball, the famous New York Yankee, Oakland A also. Best clutch performer in all of baseball, more postseason home runs than anybody else in his era. And he says he's concerned if he's not nervous. He says, well, you know, if I don't have those butterflies in my stomach, does that mean it doesn't matter to me? And maybe I won't be on my game. And wow, does that resonate with me? That he expects it and wants to have it. And I'd like you to sort of adopt that same attitude. That's what means, that shows you that you care. And your audience wants to know that you care. So the whole question is what you do with all that excess energy. And there are some tangible, physical things that you can do. There are behaviors you can employ. There are skills that you can practice. Now, this first one, you know, you've heard it before, start with a joke. What if nobody laughs? Now you're in a deficit. Now you're worse off than had you started. And it's just not worth it. The stakes are, it's not worth the risk. More important than making your audience laugh, make yourself laugh. That's easier. That's easier. You know, when I walked in this morning, it was a beautiful day, and I thought, wow, maybe we could do this out in the courtyard. Maybe we could roll the monitor out there, and we could just do this whole, we could get all the chairs out there, it's so nice and sunny out there. Okay, so a few of you smiled along with me, 1 or 2 of you chuckled. It's okay that most of you didn't. That was okay. That maybe is how I might have started today. Just to give myself an opportunity to laugh. Because laughing while you speak is a skill you can learn. And laughing is really good. Laughing comes from one of your biggest muscles, your diaphragm. You've got to take in a lot of air from down here in order to laugh. You know, because that's the other thing. Sometimes when you're nervous, all your words get stuck up in your throat, but when you laugh, that comes from down here. And you can practice that. Any stupid little story that you want to tell that is amusing to you, you can laugh while you say that a little bit, and that will help loosen you up. Okay, so as I said, yeah, telling a joke, forget it. That's just not worth it. But the other thing about laughing and using a big muscle is that it takes time. It takes time and it takes energy. And that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to manage our energy. And we're trying to manage our time also. Because what happens when you get nervous? Your heart rate goes up. Everything starts going faster. You start talking faster. You start moving around faster. You don't know what to do with your hands because everything's going so fast. And before you know it, all you're doing is what I call the flashing fig leaf. You're standing in front of your arms just doing this. You're just driving them crazy. But if you can slow down your speech pattern, you give yourself an opportunity to slow down everything. And when everything seems like it's going 1,000,000 miles an hour, the only thing you really have control over is the speed at which you speak. If you can slow that down, then you have an opportunity to really command the room. No matter how slow you think you're speaking, usually you can slow it down even more. And what happens, people often freak out because they forget what they're going to say next. People don't forget what they're saying as they're saying it. They think, oh, what was the next thing I was going to say? My notes are way over there. Oh my goodness, and that's why you start going fast. If you know where you're going next, you can really live in the moment. And you can, think about your narrative and say, you know what, right here, right here, I'm going to pause for just a moment. And I don't think any of you think I've forgotten what I'm going to say next. This is a commanding pause. I own the room here with my silence. And you can too. It's a wonderful exercise for developing that skill of speaking slower, of varying the speech pattern. There are times when you're going to want to make a point. You're going to want to hammer that point. And then slow down from there. These are things you can do when you know what you're going to say next, and if you've given a little bit of thought to how you want to say what you're saying right now. And it helps so much because it then gives you the opportunity to manage your pace. Then once you're doing that, then you can start to bring in gestures that audiences really appreciate. Air under the pits. Big gestures with your upper body, because the audiences really appreciate that. And what that does is, again, that lets you use big muscles. Big muscles require more energy. Big muscles let you get out all that energy that you might have, all the nervous energy. I had to learn this the hard way. I saw video of myself early on. I had the Jimmy legs. I'd be walking all over the place. And you know, when you're using your lower body, it's really hard to gesture with your upper body. You end up looking like a robot, you know, Danger Will Robinson or something. But so what I've learned is to quiet my lower body so I can gesture with my upper body. Now, I don't mean become a tree. I mean, I'm gonna move, especially in a much larger room. I'm gonna move. I'm gonna move over to the other side of the room too, and then I'm gonna plant. So it's purposeful movement. In a room this small, I generally stay audience left because people read from left to right. I can tee up a thought, they can read it, so I like audience left. And so I'm generally going to stay here. And I'm going to quiet my lower body so I can start to use gestures that I know audiences appreciate. And you don't have to have been born Italian to speak with your hands. That too is a skill you can learn. All of these things, these are behaviors that you can practice and that will help make you more comfortable in front of audiences. Questions, comments? Yes?
So I have a tendency to get a little emotional when I'm talking about the families and just the impact that we're making. Mm-hmm. Okay. However, I want to be able to harness that because I think it makes, I don't know how it's connected to nervousness.
Do you actually tear up?
Yeah, she does.
And are you afraid you lose your composure?
I get embarrassed. So then I think it leads to nervousness.
I love it. I feel like it's really endearing and engaging, but she always says that, oh, I messed up, I got nervous.
I think it leads to nervousness.
Yeah.
And I don't mind getting emotional in front of folks who I know very well.
Sure.
But it catches me off guard.
Yeah. Okay. So far be it for me to be the amateur psychologist here.
Right.
And really, this involves.
Any tools or tips?
Well, what's your first name?
Allegra.
And you're Christine. So Christine loves it. I think I would love it. Because again, what I want is for my presenters to bring the passion. So what could be more passionate, more emotional than such an honest display like that? Now, I'm wondering if what makes you nervous is not the fact that you did it, but that now you're thinking, oh my goodness, my audience is seeing me like this. So I'd like to see if you could get over on the idea that showing that kind of emotion is bad. Now, if you really lose your composure, I had a client who would tell a story and he would start bawling and he would not be able to speak. That's different. As long as you keep your composure, I would own it. I mean, I would have tissue nearby. I would say, sorry guys, but this really matters to me. Just take a moment. Okay, I'm better now. I mean, I would lean into it.
Okay. Okay.
And don't rush. You know, that's okay. As long as you're not freaking out in front of your audience, as long as they don't think that you've lost control, and saying little things like that, pulling out a Kleenex, or just, got to take a minute here. This really does matter to me. And if you want to choke up, sniffle, all that, that's all fine. I love that. To this point?
Yes. Is that in any way, because that happens to me too, especially with something I'm really passionate about, and I worry that it looks like, one, I'm not capable, or I'm not professional enough to speak in a room.
Yeah. And this could also be a gender thing, so far be it for me to trying to give a male point of view here. I just would want to say that I hope that's not the case. I just hope that's not true, that people would make judgments on your professionalism based on that. Now again, I mean, if you end up, becoming a lump in front of everybody, bawling your eyes out, irrespective of gender, okay, so that would be great. But you keep control of the room. Anybody who would assign amateurism to that doesn't deserve to be in the room. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. There are some questions in here too. Go ahead, Valerie. And then, what's your first name?
Xiaofang.
Xiaofang, you're on deck. Go ahead.
I was actually going to ask about gender differences, especially as pertains to the use of large muscles and large gestures. If you've had any feedback, sometimes audiences respond differently to men and women.
In my experience, did everybody hear the question? That audiences respond differently to the way men and women conduct themselves and use their bodies. I have not found a difference in terms of big muscle gestures. I have seen women do this as well or better than men. In fact, often women are more in touch with their bodies, and that's a generalization that I shouldn't have made, but I did. I've seen that. The bigger issue is voice. And this is really unfair, that if a man gets emotional, sometimes his voice, his pitch drops, and women sometimes it rises, and then it reaches frequencies that could be difficult to hear or could be fatiguing, shrill. I hate that word, and so I find that first exercise is even better for women. When women can move air from down here, they eliminate the possibility that they might be judged because their voice goes higher. Because your voice only goes lower when you go from down here. The exercise I've done before with clients is to start with, I like ice cream. Say that as loud as you can. I like ice cream. Now say, I love ice cream. Now say, I love ice cream. That's the way we all want to speak. We want to love, not like. O's and U's are better than I's and E's. They allow you to lower your register. And so at a minimum, you could learn to be quicker with the I's and E's and longer with the O's and U's. I don't know where A fits in there, so it depends upon which kind of an A. But that's the issue that I find really cuts gender lines more than gestures. Yes?
I'm just wondering, so Rick, you said you watched your previous presentation on video. So how many years did it take for you to get to this point?
I don't know if I'm at this point yet, but it was about 3 or 4 years. I remember when we first started hosting the Presentation Summit. It was 2003. And I remember video distinctly from 2006, where I was still making gratuitous motions that were distracting. And so in 06, I still didn't get it. I don't really know beyond there, but I watch a lot of video of myself, which is a skill in and of itself, to learn how to not just freak out when you see yourself being stupid and your voice register is way different than you actually thought it was. All that stuff. 08, 09, I started to feel comfortable looking at this video and saying, okay, so I don't know, 5, 6 years? Now, I'm hard on myself. I need to be. This is my profession. So everybody's mileage is going to vary. Good question, though. Thanks. I've never really been asked that before. Yes?
I just wanted to back up to the getting emotional when you're speaking about something, which I also struggle with. I'm going to do it right now. But I had the opportunity to spend a lot of time around Ken Baring, who was the developer who built Blackhawk and the Blackhawk Foundation, the Wheelchair Foundation. And when Ken would do his big fundraising dinners for the Wheelchair Foundation, and there'd be hundreds of people and lots of money in the room, and when he would start talking about doing the wheelchair disbursement, he would get, as I am, choked up. And he would actually tear up and his voice would crack. And Ken was still a self-made billionaire. And he would walk out of there at the end of the night with hundreds of thousands of dollars in donations, and nobody judged him for getting emotional. So that's what I always try to remember.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, now pardon the cynicism.
Yeah.
I wonder if he did it on purpose.
I think he did. That's the thing. Yeah, I think he did. Yeah. Yeah. Because I said to one of his close staff one time, I'm like, oh, it's so cute. It gets so emotional. And she just looked at me. She's like, really? But no. So don't. It's not a weakness, and you can still be a wild success even if you're.
That's right. Very
You
good.
have to
Thank
be
you.
able to
Thank you
sell.
for that.
Yes.
I remember one time I was speaking back in my earlier years, and a man walked up to me after, he said, you said 11 times. I'm like, oh my God. So I think that slowed down because sometimes you're thinking, what is next? So you have these little, everybody has their thing, whatever, but I would say, but it was really me just thinking, what's my next? So do you have any, I don't think I do it anymore, but
verbal
maybe.
tics have a bad, get a bad rap. They are only a problem if they become a distraction to your audience. The occasional okay, mine is okay so. That's my transition. Okay, so. I do that all the time. And I just don't let myself worry about it. We all have our ways of jump-starting our brain. And that's really what it is. The one that I laugh at the most, everybody does it, broadcasters do it, I mean. That's, I mean to say, well, that's what you'd say after you said something. What I mean is this. Today, that's just the way people start. I mean, and my daughter, and she lets it hang as if, well, maybe not. So all of these little things, these fillers, they are just a way to get the brain going. Now, if it becomes a problem, or if you become obsessed with filling every moment of silence, that's an issue. If your every third or fourth word is a little filler word, you know who was really one of the biggest offenders of this? Former President Obama. He would throw in a million of these things, and sometimes it really did sort of slow him down too much. I'm sure he had a vocal coach who worked with them on this. But most of the time, I don't want people thinking about it, because then you get paralysis of analysis. And then it's like shooting free throws. Practice more, and then then you're just calling so much attention to it. So unless you really feel as if it's becoming one of those barriers between you and your audience, don't worry.
But I never even noticed it. But then I did. I'm like, okay, how do I correct? And I watched the video, and so I think sometimes we're not even aware of it.
And I become painfully aware of it because I watch myself all the time. On Zoom, it's worse. Sometimes, especially late in the day, if I get tired, I won't just allow myself a moment to think. Instead, I'm just trying to get to the next word, and I'll do some of that stuff. At least when I make the recording, I cut it all out. So I know we all have it, and I don't want it to be an issue for people. Okay, this has been great. We are going to run hopelessly long. If I try to make it through all the material that I had, I'd rather be addressing your questions and everything. Jennifer, do we have a hard stop at noon? Do we have a hard stop? First I have to ask the host, then I ask all of you. We do. So we've got 15 more minutes. All right. I want to geek out with all of you just a little bit, because there's a really cool tool in PowerPoint that speaks to virtual, and we haven't even really spoken about virtual yet, although most of the stuff we've been talking about goes both ways here. Let me just do this. Let me do eye contact, because eye contact is really big. Now, I hope I've given all of you the impression that I've been speaking to all of you, that I will stop at each of you, or I'll sort of gaze at several of you. From this distance, I can fake it just a little bit. Valerie, am I looking you in the eye? Forehead. I forgot, Jeanette. How about, am I looking you in the eye?
I don't know now.
I am. I am. Marty?
I think so.
Chin. This distance, because some people get freaked out. Some presenters lose their composure when they just look at someone right in the eye. You don't really have to from this distance here. But if the three of us were having a meeting and I was sitting down next to you like this, now I can't be looking at your chin. You see that. And I have to be more, this is more challenging if the three of us are having a meeting. But I can't just stare at you because I'm going to creep you out. Because when I'm looking at you, you feel like you have to look at me. And I can't have you, so this is actually more challenging. I'm going to borrow this for a minute. So if I have visuals, pretend this is my iPad here, I'm going to look at it, and now both of you are looking at this too, because I'm looking at it, you're looking at it, then I'll put it down and I'll look at you. And it's okay if I'm looking down thinking about something, and I'm going to come back to you just for a few seconds, and then of course there's this thing here. This is more challenging than in a big room. And it's more challenging on Zoom. Because first of all, in gallery view, you have no idea what to look at. It's ridiculous. And you have to warm to the camera. That's what broadcasters call it. That's not easy to do. And when you're in Brady Bunch view, as I call it, then you're looking at everybody's sternum. And so here's what I've concluded. First of all, when you are presenting, you're not in gallery view. You are now in speaker view. Hopefully you have a moderator who has spotlighted you, and now it's just you and the camera. And that's a skill you can learn also, to warm to the camera, to just be looking right at it. Now, unlike a person that you're right next to, you're not going to creep out the camera. You're not going to creep out people by looking at them. But it's hard to have your gaze just be single-minded on the camera. So that's when you want to know that it's okay to have natural gestures. It's okay to look down at your notes. It's okay to have notes. In fact, I want my audience to know that I've got notes. I want them to know that I've thought about this and I'm prepared with what I want to say. And so I look down at my notes. I might think about something, but I'm not going to just look 1 degree off from the camera. Then I look shifty. That's what it is when I'm looking at the camera. I got to be looking right at it. I got to own it. This is much longer distance than I have between I'm using the camera back there, but that's the skill that you have to learn. In gallery view, like Q&A, what I've concluded is that when someone else is speaking, it's okay for me to look at that person. So now I'm not looking at the camera. I'm looking a little bit off from the camera. You know the look, and we've all seen it on Zoom. And I'm looking at that person because I want to see, I want to hear her, I want to see her. If she's gesticulating, I want to see that. I want to really be tuned into what she's saying. And then when I answer her, this is the hard part, then I have to not look at her. Now I got to go back to the camera. So listening, I'm looking at the person. Speaking, looking at the camera. That's what works for me on Zoom. And that's challenging when all this, you've got all these stimuli and you are disconnected from people at the same time. Okay, so yes, audience engagement with virtual, very difficult to do. I'm going to go quickly over some of this quote that I'm sorry, this is our new normal. This is it. And I think, for better or for worse, I think it's for better. I mean, I've been able to connect with people who would never be able to attend our conference, thanks to our virtual conference now. And so yeah, this is here to stay. There's nothing we can do about that. I've got a whole thing here. This is all in the slide deck. 10 points that I was going to make here, starting with designing for distraction. as you think about how to build your slides and how to build your presentation, you have to think about the fact that everybody's going to be multitasking. And so here's how I build my slides now, because I want everybody to have the context. I want them to know where I am, where I've been, where I'm about to go. So this is how I design my slides now. I design for distraction, because humans crave breadcrumbs virtually even more so, I have concluded. All right, and I said this back in 2014, that you're never going to get everybody's complete attention. But I don't know, maybe it's different now since COVID. I mean, maybe we pay attention better. Maybe. No! Not a chance! We are worse! Virtually, we're way worse. I'm sorry, but nobody ever said that. We are just like third graders with ADD, and as presenters, this creates a profound challenge for us, and so I call it the tilting at the windmill. You want to try to do all the things to keep people engaged, questions, polls, rhetorical questions, have a moderator, chit-chat with the moderator, do all those things, try as hard as you can, but at the same time concede. Concede not begrudgingly, but graciously, that they've got other things to do. They're checking their email, they're working on a spreadsheet, they're arranging daycare for their kids. That is what we do on virtual today, and I'm not only do I accept it, but I'm going to accommodate it. I'm going to accommodate it by giving people the most important part of any topic first, the inverted pyramid, as the journalists call it. Then go down to the less important stuff. I even say, we're going to get into the weeds here, and if you need to check out for a little while, I'll let you know when it's time to come back. And then I let my voice trail off as I'm finishing one topic that might come down here. All right, our next topic is, I bring everybody back to me. So I don't mind. I'm never going to shame somebody for multitasking. Okay, we just spoke about all this. Do the eyes still have it? On a Zoom call, it's even more important. And so there's that tactic that I gave you. We're not going to do this. I was going to bring everybody into an actual Zoom.
Do you use those little drop-down camera things that help with eye contact on Zoom calls? Do you find those helpful?
Say again?
There's cameras that drop down over the front of your monitor.
I do not.
Okay.
I do not. In fact, I don't like crutches. I don't. Well, let me take it back. The products that I know about, that is there so that you could put the camera right next to your script. Mm-hmm. And I don't want that. I want you to lose the scripts. I want you to use notes properly, not scripts. And so no, I don't like those. This was I do an hour on just this topic alone. This is 2 and 3 of the 3 tenets to a good presentation. That what you show people needs to be different than what you give people. Create slides and handouts. Do not create slides as handouts. All right, this is just an interesting little thing I did here, whereby I recorded myself saying the same thing, but with the tight camera, I didn't gesture at all. With the bottom camera, where I'm further away, now I can see my arms, and so I use them more. So having a longer focal length, which involves an actual purchase, you got to buy a real camera, not just the little thing that's connected to your notebook. Then you can start to do things that make you seem a little more like a human than just a Zoom bot. Okay, and standing, and who says you have to sit down when you give a talk? We talked all about these gestures that are more natural when you stand up. I have a lapel mic, and I stand up a lot now when I lead Zoom calls and things. Okay, and this is what I wanted to talk about. I hope I have just a minute or two, because this is a really cool tool that you all own if you have Microsoft Microsoft 365. I'm going to take this text, and let's see, right here. I'm going to take this text. I'm just going to move it over a little bit to the right. And I am now going to insert.
We're not full screen by the time.
Sorry?
Should we be full screen?
You're seeing as much as you're seeing
okay.
almost all of it. That's just, that's as good as it's going to get.
Okay.
I'm going to insert what Microsoft calls a cameo. And it comes in as a little circle at the bottom. I don't know why it always does that, but it does. I want it to be a square. I want it to be this big right here. And now, when I turn it on, it's me. It's my webcam.
Wow.
Oh shoot, what, sorry. Yeah, there we go. And I am now integrated into my slides.
That's so cool.
And when I show this to you in slideshow view, there we go. So now I can be, and I wouldn't be gesturing to all of you, I'd be looking at my camera while I'm speaking to these points. And to the question about, so this allows me to eliminate postage stamp syndrome. I turn my video camera off inside Zoom calls, Zoom presentations, and instead I bring my video likeness into my slide, and I decide where it goes.
You do that every single slide?
You could, but you don't have to, and I would suggest not. Not on every single slide. But I ask myself, so do I want my video likeness here? If so, where do I want it to be? And again, I like to be audience left. So I will design this way more often where I'm audience left, and I might make it really big. Sometimes I might make it smaller. But I decide exactly how my video likeness is to be shown, if at all, on any slide. This is Microsoft Cameo. It's built in to Office 365. It's not called that any longer. Now it's called Microsoft 365. And it is an excellent tool. There is bandwidth issues. If you do full screen, you might get some lag. Microsoft is still figuring all this out, but it's a very powerful tool. Question?
Just a quick question. So you insert it into the specific slide and then you save it as part of that slide so that when you move on to the next one, it's not part of it? But then you have to turn your camera on and off.
So that is correct. On this slide, it would not show.
But you have to turn your camera on and off?
I do not.
Okay.
I do not. Now, when I'm working on the slide and I'm building the slide, it's easier to not have my likeness. So I turned it off. But if I want to see what it looks like, okay, well that looks pretty good. And if I want to practice looking at those 3 points to guide you to it, I can't do that. I have to do this. And that's kind of challenging a little bit. So I practice all that, but I build the slide this way, but as soon as I show the slide, the camera will instantly come on. Okay. So there's a lot of advanced things you can do. You can have toggles, you can put them on layouts. You can have layouts so you can ask yourself, okay, do I want my picture, do I want myself here? I'll use the Cameo layout. So lots of things you can do. That was just a little taste right there of Cameo, which will eliminate postage stamp syndrome. Yes, to the woman who asked me about postage stamp syndrome.
That's really cool. So when the slide comes on, the Zoom post stamp disappear automatically?
Does the Zoom?
For example, you're giving a webinar, so you can post them on there.
Yes, so let me say this. So this necessarily suggests you're sharing your screen because you're showing your slides.
Yes.
So you're in screen share.
Yes.
And that is the only way you are going to come through. You will not be able to activate your camera in Zoom because only one program can use your camera at a time. Zoom will tell you your camera is unavailable. If you start with your camera on in Zoom, PowerPoint will say camera error. So you must have your camera disabled in Zoom. So now there is no longer any postage stamp. You're not going to be anything to Zoom. Your camera is off because PowerPoint controls your camera.
So when you start your screen share, you turn off your camera, or right before?
Well, before.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that it matters too much the order in which you do it. I don't think it gets confused or anything as long as they're both not trying to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that means for the rest of the presentation, you are not showing your face.
You will not be showing your face with the Zoom interface. You will be showing your face this way. Now, if your presentation ends and you want to go to gallery view, then you could do one of two things. You could have a full slide. Wait a minute, no, because gallery view won't take a screen share. Then you will turn screen share off. You'll turn your camera back on in Zoom to go to gallery view.
I still have a question. So if you don't put that camera on every slide, that means a lot of slides you are not showing your face at all.
Correct. You decide. You decide. And I think that's good. I think there are slides where you don't need to be there. And maybe you've got something really important to say and you want to nail it, so maybe you do write it out. You're off camera now, so you practice it, and then you deliver it, knowing that nobody's seeing you reading from your script. That's the exception, not the rule, I hope, but that's when you would turn your camera, when you would not want your camera on. Now,
thank you.
12:01. I am happy to take final Q&A if I'm allowed to.
We do need to wrap up within a few moments.
Okay.
Is it comparable in Google Slides, because that's what we use.
Yeah, I do not think so yet. There's lots of software that's really sophisticated that does things, that runs rings around this. Open broadcast software, OBS. I believe OBS does work inside Google Meet. I'm not certain of that.
Not Google Meet, Google Slides.
Oh, Google Slides, sorry. Google Slides doesn't have anything like this. No, sorry. Yeah, no.
Yet.
Yet.
It needs to.
Yes, yeah.
So I want to thank Rick. Thank you
And
so
thank
much.
you all so much. That was wonderful. Our next conference, October 19 to 22. And I would be happy to invite all of you there if the association wanted to send out a post email about this.
Okay, great, thank you. Also, I just want to say for myself, for nervousness, one thing I do, I did it this morning, I do it every time, because I used to be very nervous about public speaking, like coming here would have had me shaking my boots. But I've done it enough now where I've gotten more used to it, more comfortable. But when I'm in the car, I turn the radio off and I breathe and I say whatever I need that day. So today it was, I'm taking my power back.
And look where that breath
smart.
Look where that breath came from.
And I
Way
do
down
that,
here.
and I say it out loud. I don't just say it in my head, I say it out loud in my car over and over and over again. It's whatever words I need for that day, and it makes a huge
That is
difference.
so enabling.
Yeah. So,
I love that.
So,
I love that.
tips.
Yeah.
Tips. Thank you so much.
Oh.
Thank you, everyone, and I hope to see you all next week, June 18th, at our event.
Hey.